Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Here's the meme of the day, brought to you guys by 5mind.com. Oh well, it seems like somebody's got their panties in a bunch. Somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Poor little baby, poor little Gavin Newsom. Oh, he's having a real tough week. This guy obviously wants to be president so badly, even more than Kamala Harris. And if we learned anything last election cycle, it's that, it's kind of tough to become president these days or to win over the young men. You can't win over people like Joe Rogan. Obviously, Gavin Newsom understands this, and it's a little bit of a sore point for him, because not only can he not win over Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan stonewalls him, doesn't want him on his show at all. Joe Rogan can't stand him, and Gavin knows that he needs that Rogan bump. He needs that 3-hour long-form discussion where he can win over Joe Rogan's audience, where he can rebrand himself, but Rogan won't even give him the stage. And so Gavin does what he always does. He acts like a petulant frickin' child, like a spoiled little baby. Little Gavin Newsom is not getting what he wants. And so he's throwing a complete tantrum, now throwing such a petty smear of the very guy that he's so desperate to sit down with and gain his approval. Gavin Newsom's doing the, oh, I don't even care about Joe Rogan act, but you can tell, oh, he so desperately cares. Joe Rogan's absolutely destroying this clown. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so take a look at this moment here with Gavin Newsom. This guy's such a petty loser. He's such a fraud. It's unbelievable.
For years and years, he's been attacking me, and it's one way, and he won't have me on. He's consistently not having me on. By the way, I'm moving on. I have no interest.
You're done with him?
Joe Rogan's the Facebook of podcasts. He was sitting across one of the brightest minds in podcasting right now. The guy was in the mic. And there are a lot of people at the mic doing extraordinary things in podcasting.
Joe Rogan's got a pretty big audience still, though.
You know what? But with all due respect, if he has a big audience but he doesn't have big enough confidence, I didn't go there, to have me on.
Well, you've called him a chicken.
He's been attacking for. Here's the thing: these guys, they all have something in common. It's one way. They attack, they belittle, they demean, they take things out of context. But this is a serious thing.
Yeah.
And so often we just sit back and go, oh God, I really would love to go on. Oh, if Kamala Harris just went on Joe Rogan, she would have won. It's not, it's so much deeper than that. And the unwillingness for a guy like that to even have the common courtesy to attack someone and not have the decency to say, you know what, why don't you have a chance to come on? Let's have a civil dialogue. I've watched you on podcasts with like Sean Ryan, who's a close buddy of his. He had the courage on me have 4 hours.
Right.
Sean Hannity, folks like that. And so if I can go on Sean Ryan and Sean Hannity, what are you worried about? Joe, you're going to cook me. Or I'm going to cook myself.
And there it is, right? Beg for the invite. Oh, Joe Rogan won't have me on, and I just don't get why he won't have me on. But then in the same breath, act above it, and also hit him with ad hominems. But the most disingenuous attack, and really the most hypocritical and ironic attack, is him claiming that, oh, Joe Rogan, all he does is attack us. Oh, he's just attacking me. Oh, he must be obsessed. Again, kind of proving why Joe Rogan probably thinks you're a complete fraud. Probably one of the main reasons why he doesn't want to have you on. He tries to paint Joe Rogan as some sort of right-wing boogeyman that launches all these indecent attacks against all the Democrats, right? But Rogan literally backed Bernie Sanders. Rogan is one of you guys. It's not about ideology, it's more about credibility. And when Rogan goes after you, he never launches ad hominem attacks, which is also kind of ironic because Gavin Newsom hasn't stopped on social media attacking Joe Rogan for being short. Look at this X post from Governor Newsom press office. Little Joe is snack size because he can't handle full-size debates. All he's done over the last couple of weeks is attack Joe Rogan for being short, and yet he has the audacity to claim that Joe Rogan is just insulting him. Joe Rogan just lobs these substanceless attacks against poor Gavin Newsom. What a joke, especially after years of smearing Joe Rogan, all the lies during the pandemic, the alt-right nonsense, nothing but lazy labels, and now, oh, some real substantive stuff, oh, Joe Rogan, ha ha ha, you're short, what's next, you're bald? Meanwhile, what's happening on the other side? Every single time Joe Rogan speaks about Gavin Newsom, he's talking about policy, track record, personal experience, being from California.
Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids, what was totally unnecessary, to being caught out in public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah, when is he coming on? He's talking some shit. on Twitter.
I know, it's like, you think that's gonna work? Like, that's so stupid. Like, this is such a bad look. This is a bad strategy. Like, I probably would have had him on.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, nah, what are you doing?
There is a fun version where you just do it and cook them, you know?
He'll cook himself.
I mean, that
He'll cook
seems to
himself.
be
All you have
already
to do
happening.
is just ask him a question. Well, why do you say this thing all the time where you rattle off all the good things about California? When anybody says something bad about California, it's like, #1 in Fortune 500 companies, #1 in higher education, #1. It was all that before you were there. You can't ruin a city and then go on to ruin a state and say, guys, that was just practice.
I know.
Once I get it as a president, I'm going to fix it. Fix it all. The things that he says when he gets confronted with the, we're the highest this and the highest that. Like, everybody's leaving.
Yeah.
You have the highest unemployment.
Yeah.
You have the highest homelessness. We were just talking about the wildfire situation and how crazy it is that they spent $24 billion last year on the homeless.
Yeah.
What did they spend on preventing these wildfires?
Zero.
Not zip. Didn't do anything. And then on top of that, they cut the water off. Well, the whole state is just so poorly managed. It's so it's so frustrating and confusing. And then he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great. And California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy. And like, you're out of your mind, dude. You've ruined this state.
Have you been on Newsom's podcast yet?
I heard it's really good. He would probably have me on. I'm not interested. You know,
I'd like to be asked.
It's not like I'm opposed to talking to Democratic politicians. I'll talk to anybody, but that guy.
Yeah, that right there's the difference now, isn't it? Rogan's criticism is concrete. It's lived. I thought Democrats cared about my lived experience. Well, Joe Rogan's the guy who used to be one of your voters. He used to live in California and conduct his business there, but you pushed him out of the state with your policies, allowing crime and homelessness to run rampant, all the overstepping of boundaries and trampling of constitutional rights and civil liberties during the pandemic. And now instead of actually engaging with Joe Rogan, instead of seeing where the criticism is coming from, of course, you're too scared of your Democrat fanatic followers, so you appeal to them instead of actually engaging properly with Joe Rogan or acknowledging some of his valid criticisms and reforming, which probably, you know, if you did genuinely, he would easily have you on his show. In other words, all of the Joe Rogan attacks are not attacks at all. They're valid criticism, and you clearly attack because you cannot defend your record. That's all Gavin Newsom does, and that's exactly how Joe Rogan has pinned you too, clearly accurately. You're a little snake, a con man. You're exactly what you claim Donald Trump is. And again, more hypocrisy there, right? Ooh, all my opponents, all they do is attack and smear me. Oh, I'm the most smeared man in America. My name is Gavin Newsom. Shut up, seriously. Says the guy who never argues substance. All you ever do is attack. You label Donald Trump a fascist, a racist, a misogynist, a dictator. Never actually debating policy. Or, you know, your latest feud with Ron DeSantis that's been ongoing for years. He's clearly the better governor. He's criticized your abject failure in California, and your only response every time to Ron DeSantis is, "You're weird, bro. You carry poop and porn in your pocket." Remember this one? Of course, referring to Ron DeSantis pulling out the poop map of San Francisco, which is a real thing, by the way, human feces across the freaking city. And then, of course, Ron DeSantis showed some of the inappropriate books that were in public school systems in California available to children. Instead of attacking the substance of the argument, Gavin Newsom just says, "Oh, you're a weirdo. You have poop and porn in your pocket." The guy's a colossal moron and clearly such a disingenuous actor. Emphasis on the word actor. And that is why Joe Rogan wants nothing to do with you. You claim it's some personal attack, but it's not. And obviously you've got your panties in a bunch here because you so desperately want to become president and you know you need Joe Rogan and it kills you that he has no respect for you. Well, get used to it, pal, because pretty much nobody outside of California has any respect for you. And honestly, I know there's a lot of talk that Gavin Newsom would be a serious contender on the national stage, but I just don't buy it. He's got the same kind of skeletons in his closet as Kamala Harris. Sure, maybe he's a better speaker, but he certainly isn't a better debater. He comes off as such a slick, self-interested sociopath. His track record in California is so abysmal, there's so much ammunition to use against this guy. I just have a feeling that if they ran him on the national stage, there's no frickin' way Pennsylvania is voting for him over someone like JD Vance. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and obviously it's certainly early. But I'll tell you one thing, there's one thing I'll certainly predict, and if it was, you know, being bet on Polymarket, I'd put my money on it. One thing that's never happening is Gavin Newsom slicking his way on the Joe Rogan podcast. Especially not with these his pathetic, desperate attempts. Joe Rogan will never like you, bro. Just move on, you colossal frickin' loser. Anyways, that's what I got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
As a man, you always have a burden of performance. This is why most homeless people are men, not women. You always, when you don't have the burden of performance, this is why more people who take their own lives are men as opposed to women. As a man, you always have a burden of performance. No one is coming to save you. Now, often no one's coming to save women also, but there is this thing with women where it's like, if you're an attractive woman, there kind of is a dude or a line of dudes that are like, I would absolutely be willing to take care of you. Whereas for me, I don't have big boobies.
When it comes to relationships, what does it mean when people say that men have a masculine burden of performance?
I think they do. I think that is the man's job to, provide, protect. It's not necessarily a burden, but kind of a responsibility I think that men are born into.
The societal standards that are put on men of like they need to be tough, they can't cry, and they have to be like protectors.
Is that burden something men choose or something society forces on them?
I think that is what men choose by being a man, because you're masculine and you have the strength and you have the power and you should be the leader.
I think in some cases you could say that it's forced on them, but I think that in 2025 there's two ways to look at it. You can find a relationship if you look in the right places where you don't need that burden and where things are split in a more 50-50 sense. And there are also going to be relationships a lot of the time where people expect a certain level of continuity between, from a man, expecting him to do things that, have been expected for a very long time.
It can be a mixture of both, but I think it's more like the pressure from like the fathers of like, that's how they were raised, and it's like a societal and like generational pressure.
At what point does this responsibility stop being noble and start feeling like exploitation?
I think to the point of when women are using and abusing it, right? So like women are like, oh, you're a man, so pay all my bills and take care of me 100%, but then I'm just using you for that instead of an actual intimate relationship.
Can a man reject this burden? And if not, what does that say about his freedom?
So a man can reject this burden, however, it might not play well for him in the sexual marketplace.
A man can reject it, but he's not a real man.
What does that do to his dating options and why?
It makes him very slim because he's not a real man.
Because of the societal norm, there's consequences to that of like maybe getting a partner is more difficult because they're looking for someone that holds like the masculine standard. But I don't think there's any necessarily like huge consequences for breaking the norm.
I personally have a career of my own, and I'm certainly happy to contribute. But to some degree, I think every woman wants to be taken care of by a man.
It lowers his chances of getting the woman he wants because he's not meeting expectations.
How can women say that masculinity is toxic at the same time they want men to perform?
I think it's confusion.
There's a fine line. So I think like in this society, we've kind of lost a little bit of it, but there's a fine line of being taken care of and being a provider to your family and it kind of exploiting that.
Do you think that women have the privilege of being more picky because they have more options?
Yes, definitely.
So if men had more dating options than women, wouldn't it be women who had a burden of performance instead of men?
Absolutely.
So why aren't we shaming the women to step up instead of men?
I feel like women are shamed, just not as much as men are.
Why don't women have a burden of performance to become better partners if they don't want to be viewed as a mere sexual object?
I think we like sexuality, and we are objects. We're all objects. And just take your role and go with it.
How would you feel if society expected women to always pay for men, open doors, and protect them physically, not as a choice but as a duty? Would that still feel like romance or feel like an unfair burden placed on women?
I feel like we need the men to do that. It's for security.
Why is it not an unfair burden when that's placed on men?
Because that's the roles. It's gender roles. I give you the pussy and you open the doors.
Do we assume that performing makes men more respected or more replaceable?
I'd say more respected.
If men stopped performing, would society collapse or would it simply adapt?
No, I think they would adapt, but it would certainly have a pretty drastic collapse. Not all the way through, but significant for sure.
I think like maybe women would step up, or like there'd be a few of like, I think everything's changing in the world, so I think if you break that norm, it'd change.
Why then are so many women complaining about being forced to step up and take on more masculine roles?
I think that's tough. I think that's maybe just like the generational being told they can't step up or they're feeling weaker. But I think there's plenty of women that have stepped up.
Think about just the infrastructure right here. We're in Las Vegas, right? The vast majority of the guys people who built this are men, right? A lot of men are controlling the world and providing a sense of structure in their homes in this world. Society would be in a very strong state of chaos if men were to be removed.
Why do you think a man's value is often tied to what he does instead of who he is?
I think those two are intertwined. What you do is part of who you are.
A lot of times I feel like guys present themselves as this is my job and this is what I do and this is like, that's like their selling point for themselves. So like surface level you don't get past.
If a man stops performing, stops providing, competing, or achieving, what happens to how people see him?
He's held at like a lower value, I'd say.
He's a bum.
So do you think men perform for women's approval or for their own sense of identity?
I would hope it was for their own sense, but I feel like their dick rules their mind, so it's for the women.
So what's the difference between a masculine burden of performance and happy wife, happy life?
There's no difference.
Well then how do you address women's sense of entitlement without first addressing men's sense of obligation?
Hey, it's our roles. I'm entitled and you're obligated. It is what it is.
Is society built on men's sacrifices, or does society take those sacrifices for granted?
I think right now they're taken for granted because I think it's just like almost the masculinity isn't looked at as such a positive thing right now.
Do you think men perform for women's approval or for their own sense of identity?
I'd hope it's their own sense of identity.
Ultimately, it is for their own personal kind of growth and whatnot, but I'd be definitely lying to you if I said that women's choices are not something that influences us.
What happens to a man that fails to perform? Does society empathize or discard him?
I think sadly discard him.
They discard them. That is just the harsh reality of the world, right? So I think as a man, it's really just perform or not. And yeah, if you're not performing, if you're not providing, doing X, Y, and Z, you're going to be discarded. So if you want to be a winner, if you want to have a girlfriend, X, Y, and Z, you got to perform.
So how does the pressure to perform affect men's mental health or identity?
Probably in a very negative way. I'll be honest, probably in a very negative way. However, it's just like you're a man. It's like put up with it, learn, grow, become better, or fail.
Yeah, it's very significant, and I think the vast majority of depression cases are based on that.
Well, I know men have the highest rate of suicide, so I know there's like a lot of pressure on men to perform correctly.
If women are loved for being and men are loved for doing, is that a fair arrangement?
I think that is the way the world has been for many years. I don't know if I can say it's fair, but it's just what has been the case.
How does this expectation shape men's relationships with women, work, and themselves?
It's almost like, what would be the right word? Like you do something for me, I do something for you. So it's more of like, what would that word be?
Transactional.
Yeah, transactional.
Does defining masculinity through performance trap men in a role they can never rest from?
I think it does, actually. And I think it does. And I think it is the burden of the man to take on that extra responsibility to, take care of your woman, take care of those extra responsibilities, make sure that she's happy.
So once again, what's the difference between a masculine burden of performance and happy wife, happy life?
That I can't answer.
Are there cultures where men are valued for simply existing, or is this burden universal?
I feel like this is definitely more universal. I feel like across the whole world, most people would imagine that the men would be the person to be the provider, to be the protector, to be the head of the household kind of idea.
It's interesting. I think there are cultures where men are certainly given a higher sense of value, but in those cultures also I've seen that there is a greater responsibility for them to perform and provide.
Why do people praise men for being providers, but shame them for wanting appreciation?
I never shame a man for wanting appreciation. I give my man appreciation every day, and you better ask them.
Would society tolerate women being told that they have a feminine burden of performance?
I think inherently they know that. Maybe a little un-PC to go out there and say that publicly, but inherently it is part of the culture, and I think they know that.
Why do people praise men for being providers, but shame them for wanting appreciation?
Yeah, I think it goes up to the idea that men shouldn't be outright asking for rewards. They should just be doing the hard work and naturally going out there and receiving it.
If a man is expected to serve others, but can't question it, does that sound like duty or slavery?
Yeah, sounds like slavery to me, man. Ultimately, I do think the man has the ability to control his own destiny, and he does not necessarily have to confine to the standards of his environment. You always have the freedom of choice. You can move.
How would you describe a system that rewards men only if they never stop performing?
Well, I mean, that sounds a little bit tiresome, but I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of how life is. It's like it's one thing after another. There's never really a break, and hopefully if you have the right people in your life, you're going to get that recognition, you're going to get that love, and you're going to get that care, and it's going to feel like it's worth it.
I compare it to a hamster wheel where you're constantly running on this thing, but ultimately I do think that there's a baseline in society where you can free yourself from the hamster wheel and you get more and more choice if you so choose to live that way.
If freedom means the right to refuse servitude, do men actually have the freedom?
I think they have the freedom, but are they willing to take that freedom? I feel like so many people are stuck in their ways that it's scary to change from being an NPC.
Can duty and freedom coexist, or are they always in conflict?
I think they're always in conflict. We've had duties, and you can see a lot of people here hate their jobs, but it is their duty to go out there and provide, take care of themselves, take care of their loved ones. The goal is to find ways where you can create more freedom in your life. You start off with a lot when you're young, and I think if you make the right decisions, you allow yourself more freedom.
What would masculinity look like without the burden of performance?
I don't know. I feel like how I look at masculinity is like the protector and the strong one. So like without performance, I wouldn't really know.
I don't think they could necessarily exist without each other. There's always some level of performance, and that burden of performance is what keeps you honest and moving forward.
Does rejecting the burden of performance make a man free or lost?
I think honestly, I would say lost. If you look at a lot of young men smoking, doing drugs, partying, once they find careers, once they find the right woman, and they find something that really keeps them going, I think that's what will help them find meaning in their life.
Can men redefine what performance means on their own terms?
They can, but it can be hard. I think you have to recognize that we live in a society, and a lot of our inherent sense of worth comes from how we can help others in society.
Is masculinity about freedom or about responsibility?
I think right now in society, it's about responsibility.
So then how can men redefine what performance means on their own terms?
Well, it's going to be a slow process. It wouldn't be like an overnight change, but it's like getting out there. Like, I think even like gender right now is being reevaluated. So I think everything can be reevaluated and changed over time. Would I know what that looks like? No, because I'm a female. So that's hard for me to look at what that would be.
Core of it is responsibility, but we also have a responsibility to care about our freedom, right? It's the inherent American dream. You have to go out there and fight for it, though, and it's a responsibility to go out there and pursue it.
Why is it that men will reluctantly accept their fate anytime an injustice is pointed out? It is what it is, or that's just part of being a man?
It goes back to all these questions that, as a man, I feel like you do have a burden of responsibility and more responsibility in general to make, your loved ones, your children, and your wife happy.
And how would our society react if we told women that they had a feminine burden of performance?
Probably not good.
Yeah, there's that idea in our culture sometimes that we can't speak up for ourselves, and that is just complaining, we don't want to hear about it. I see that argument, but a lot of it is you have to go out there and advocate for yourself.
Well, how can men's issues ever be heard if we're told that real men don't complain?
Yeah, I think that honestly, like, going out there and complaining without a solution can be sometimes a bad idea, but outright, if you go out there and advocate for yourself, provide solutions in society, I think that's a really masculine thing to do, actually.
Why have men been tricked into thinking that it's unmanly to advocate for themselves?
There's a lot of feminist content out there where women are just I think women do ultimately drive the dating conversations, and men want to center around being what they want from them. So I think there is a factor there, but if you do it in an intelligent way, I think it'll work.
Do you believe that women were oppressed back when they were expected to be traditional, back before feminism?
Yes.
If so, how are men not oppressed by holding them to a traditional standard today?
They are oppressed.
Why is our society not acknowledging that?
I feel like men are not speaking up for themselves. I feel like women fought for where they're at now, and men stay quiet.
Is it possible that men stay quiet or aren't heard because they are oppressed?
Yes, absolutely.
So how are men supposed to be able to be heard if we're told that real men don't complain?
I feel like the same way a woman spoke up. If women stay quiet about they should be feminine, they should cook, they should clean, stay home with the kids. If women stay quiet, there wouldn't be a change now today. They wouldn't have the option. It wouldn't be okay to be who they want to be today. So I feel like if men spoke up, it slowly but surely, it's not an overnight thing. It'll become, a change will happen.
Why can't men seem to fathom that things could possibly be any other way?
I think it's because right now you're shamed if you're not to that standard. And so, like, to take the risk and to change the path is a scary thing.
When you're born that way, hey, that's the line God gave you, and it is what it is. And you take your role and you move in power, or you succumb to it and become a bum. It's up to you. And as a woman, you'll support your man and make sure he is the highest of the highest, so that way you guys can go to the top and raise your children, or go be single people. It's up to you guys.
Lastly, Harriet Tubman once said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." How does this apply to modern men?
Well, it's like the whole, like, there's so many people that are NPCs and they don't know it. So it's just, if you're stuck in a pattern, you don't see, like, even in a relationship, you don't see the problems unless you're an outside perspective. So I think it's that of, like, you don't even know what's going on sometimes because you're not taking an outside view on it and you're just stuck.
There's so many trappings in life, man. I think that people don't know what their life could look like if they were able to be freed from the so-called matrix, or, all the trappings of life. It takes some time and it takes some self-discovery, but I think it's ultimately worth it.
You asked why people would keep voting for this kind of stuff. This is from Zach Sage last month, and it's an amazing video which basically explains why these people keep voting the way they do. Let's roll tape.
Can I get your signature for support?
Sure.
Okay, wait, I'm required by law. I just have to read you like 3 of these
I think I've
policies.
seen
You're
this.
cool to elect a mayor who won't condemn
Yeah.
Sharia law.
Sharia law. I'm denouncing them. I'm asking you. I'm running.
Okay, cool.
I don't know about that. But,
Oh, you don't?
well, what is this?
It's just like a lot of his policy positions and stuff. You have to recognize the DSA's Bill of Rights socialism, so he'd replace the Bill of Rights with... You can read all this. This is out there. You still want to do it or no? Oh, he's going to tax white people higher? It's on his website first.
I just don't think that this is exactly his policies.
You can look all of it up. No, this is literally the first thing on his website. It's about taxing whiter neighborhoods.
It doesn't say whiter
No, it literally says
It literally
whiter.
does.
Oh
my God.
It does.
I don't know what's going on.
Wait, so you voted for him in the primary, but you didn't
It's
know
a
about
cult.
that?
These people should not be allowed to vote. I'm sorry.
No, it doesn't literally say whiter neighborhoods.
This is why they keep voting for it, because they are cognitively impaired and arrogant. We need to stop teaching people that they're beautiful little snowflakes that are the main characters of their own story.
What do I mean?
And we should tell, especially Seamus. What? And we should stop telling people that they need to be in charge of everything. It is okay to not be the boss. You can be like, hey man, look, I understand I'm not an expert on this policy stuff, so I defer to you. People like this is what you get in these urban environments where they're like, no, you must be wrong.
Well, it's women. I mean, if
You're
we're
saying
being,
repeal the 19th?
If we're being honest, look, we're never going to repeal the 19th. I mean, I hope that this goes poorly, but we're never going to repeal the 19th. It's not worth talking about.
I
But
don't think...
it's women who are voting for this stuff.
Yes, but the issue I see is that you've got greater male variability hypothesis, and so it's how did let me put it like this: how is it possible for women to vote for these things?
Well, they're not responsible for the outcome.
No, but how is it possible for them to literally walk into a polling station and vote for it?
Men protecting them.
Matt, what do you mean?
I mean, of course, they're able to vote because men protect their rights.
Because men decided women should vote.
Yeah.
So it's like humans. It's just what humans do. At some point, guys were like, women vote. And now women are voting, and you're like, women shouldn't vote. But it's guys who let them do it. So it's a circular problem. Like, there are stupid men, and there are stupid women. And the issue largely, I think, is... Let me ask everybody watching at home this question. Did you know that not a single woman has ever won the Chess Open World Championship? So the question
it's because
is,
they're dumb.
why?
I'm just kidding.
Why is there an open division and a women's division?
Women aren't as good at chess.
I think the answer is very simply because there can only be one world champion, but then there is greater male variability hypothesis, meaning there's going to be way more stupid guys, but way more smart guys. And if you've got one slot and 900 men and 20 women, it's gonna be a guy.
Yeah, Seamus, you mentioned, I think on PCC, this like idea that, you know, women are cooks and men are chefs.
No, I didn't. You mentioned that.
So it was something that came
but
up in our
it was
conversation.
something about like
and I
men
said,
become
like,
obsessive about the thing they're interested in.
When it comes to literally any field, any skill, any hobby, the people who are psychotically good at something are men.
Because they obsess. It's true. Men will like obsess over a thing
even
and get really good at it.
This recent TwitchCon, this like Twitch event, they did a bunch of video game tournaments, and I guess there was a women's division, and a dude who thinks he's a woman won.
Oh no.
And it's because, well, first of all, it's because women accept this shit. I mean, they just put a bunch of trans-identifying males on the cover of Glamour for Women of the Year.
No, what?
Because women accept this shit. But secondly, it's because men are going to exceed the abilities of women at things
Rachel
like video
Zegler's a
games
guy?
and things like chess. Well, Rachel Zegler was one of the winners, but in the UK, it was the Glamour UK cover. J.K. Rowling actually posted about it.
I was surprised. I
She
thought
said, like,
Rachel
when I
Zegler
was
hot
younger,
naked.
women's magazines told us to be prettier and thinner, and now they're telling us that men are better women than we are. And it's true. And this happens because women are on the editorial teams that make these decisions, and women are the ones buying it off the shelves.
What are you saying? Women should also not be in the workforce?
Well, this weird thing will also happen with these publications where In the same way that the people who've controlled our media have told us bad stories to reshape our minds, they've tried to groom women through putting things in women's literature that, like, historically women haven't sought out.
This is the
and they
history
made it
of
strange.
Cosmopolitan.
Yeah, where they'll put things in it to get women to behave in ways that are not, like, historically typical.
So in Cosmo, they published guest essays under pen names that were completely fictional about casual hookups in order to glamorize the lifestyle of the Cosmo girl, but it was completely made up. And you're absolutely right. Like, women's minds have been hijacked by this stuff.
Yeah, and so I know people say, like, oh, women are buying these magazines. It's like, yes, but what you got to remember is just because there's a demand for something doesn't mean the demand's going to be filled. And this comes along, this is the case for men's entertainment and women's entertainment, where, like, what is being sold is not necessarily what's demanded. It's the demand that the establishment's willing to fulfill. It's the demand that the people who are creating it are willing to fulfill, and those people have an agenda.
Democracy is a mistake.
That's what I was
Well,
saying.
I'm on board with that, yeah.
The founding fathers didn't like democracy either.
That's
wanted why
a
we don't
republic.
have one.
They wanted a republic.
Universal suffrage was not part of the authorship of the founding fathers.
Yeah, seriously. So I think we need a system of governance. How do we have, like, a meritocratic political system? The challenge is this. You want the best at the job to do the job. But politics is the one place where it's not possible.
Yeah.
You can have somebody like, okay, whoever can run faster and climb higher is going to be the firefighter, I guess. You're strong enough to do it. You can have jobs like race car driver. It's like, well, certainly you're winning, and you're not.
They're like cartoonists.
I know.
Go to twistedplots.com. Support it.
Right. But how do you do that for politics? How do you figure out if someone actually is good at running systems? And then here's the other problem. Let's say they are, and they go, we have to cut SNAP benefits for 37 million people, but they'll revolt. But we have to. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm the expert. We have to do it. They're going to be like, okay, they'll chop your head off.
Well, this is exactly why I say almost every night that I'm on the show that we need to hold to the principle of subsidiarity and keep things operating at the most local possible level. Because
monarchy,
when things are federalized, subsidiarity and monarchy aren't the same thing, but you can have a monarchist system that follows subsidiarity. The point, though, is that things that have to be handled at the most local possible level should be handled at the most local possible level. And when you don't do that, you end up with a bloated federal government. And as you mentioned, Tim, it's hard to find people who are competent enough to do these jobs. If someone is competent enough to do all of the things that someone in a role in the federal government should theoretically be able to do, like, they're not going to work for the federal government. They're going to make a lot of money in the private sector. When things are done at the local level, A, less bandwidth is required from the person in the position, and B, hyper competent people are more willing to give back to their community and the people around them.
Right. I agree, but
you at a federal level.
But you can't also run this government without federal level politicians, and it's always going to devolve the way it is.
Yep.
So look, I mentioned this. I did an interview with Senator Rand Paul, and I said to him that there's not going to be any member of Congress, maybe just he and Thomas Massey, who will campaign on, I will cut your benefits. No one will do it. Republicans say, we'll keep your benefits the way they are, we won't touch them, and Democrats say, we'll double them. And that's the only direction you can move, otherwise no one will vote for you. And that's what's going to happen until the system explodes. And because this woman is as dumb as a box of rocks, and I feel bad saying that, because I'm not trying to insult rocks.
Well, wait a sec. Okay, wait a sec. You can say a lot of stuff. First of all, a lot of stuff. Being a woman voter. A lot of women vote. And they vote correctly. They just don't tell their husbands, because I know I have a lot of friends. But also, I want to talk to you about running up and running down. What happens in California and a lot of other places, especially big city and big Democratic, is you run up the ticket or down the ticket, depending on what the DNC wants you to do or the RNC wants you to do, or in our case, Act Blue. If you run on a ticket, you can pick the ticket, and that's probably what's going to happen in California for the governor's race. And it's also a jungle primary, so this governor's race could change very drastically in the coming months. Most importantly is, you're absolutely right about keeping it tribal in the cities. There's a reason for that. But the biggest problem that we have in California, how goes California goes the rest of the country. The biggest problem that we have in California is we have no economic development. We do not grow our business at all. We have run 6 million people have left. Every single one of them pays taxes.
Yep.
Nobody stayed there that doesn't pay taxes. Without economic development, the only option for a state is to raise taxes. You can't cut benefits because you got to get rid of the people that need those benefits. It's a different problem altogether. You've got to have economic development. And if we don't have it, which we haven't had in California for 3 decades, one of the most interesting things about Mayors Matter is that I have asked if the lieutenant governor of our state has visited any of the mayors that I've interviewed so far, and the answer is no. All of them, no. They don't. 14 didn't know who she was. So at the end of the day, if you don't have economic development in your state, you cannot grow your base. You can only survive by charging higher taxes, and that's what's happening in California.
Yeah.
You have to keep it local, and then you've got to stop the Sacramento, in our case, from reaching down to small communities like Cerritos or wherever and saying, hey, we need you to put more housing in. In California, every bill is named in a way that makes it enticing to people that want something for nothing, like the mansion tax. Mansion tax isn't mansion tax. It's transfer tax. It's a levy. It's an illegal levy on all classes of real estate. It killed the real estate market $1 trillion in Los Angeles. And we are all suffering from that. And Gavin Newsom is leaving, and he's going to leave our state $500 billion, $500 billion in the hole.
Well, and this is the crazy thing. So if one particular individual has $1 billion or their net worth is $1 billion, people on the left go, no one should have that much money. But then when you have these stupid policies that literally just erase $1 billion from the economy, oh, that's no big deal. Who cares? It's like, whoa. Where's all of our concern about all of the things that could have been done for vulnerable people with that $1 billion? That just vanished once the government wasted it instead of one guy having it. But I want to ask you something, because you mentioned that you worked in real estate development, and my intuition, based on everything I've understood from the news cycles and what I know about California, is that that's an absolute nightmare out there. How do you navigate that, and what do you think could be done to fix that?
Well, when I saw what happened in Hawaii, I thought I'd never seen anything like it, and it's exactly what's happening to us. It's a land grab. Everybody that's in real estate in a big way, including, developers, I don't even want to name names, are buying up distressed, burnt real estate because it's 11 months into it, a couple days, and
we wouldn't mind if you named some names. We can't stop you.
You're going to hear about them really soon. They've passed this thing called SB 79, which is a high density bill, and a high density bill is the equivalent of, if I built a 7-story building right next to your house out there, how would you like that? If I just came in, rolled up, and said, hey, I'm going to put a 7-story apartment building right here. They changed the actual zoning.
I would
say do it, fill it with Section 8. I'd love that.
I would like it because it would increase my property value.
You think it would? Okay, so that's a good question. So
depends on the area.
Part of the problem is, like, in New York, I think part of the biggest, some people are going to argue with me, but New York was built on the stock exchange. That's what created New York. New York was the stock exchange. And, $4.7 trillion spinning around the earth, okay? But since COVID, we got $7.8 trillion spinning around outside of the earth that none of us ever touch, okay? And that's where Wall Street lives. It doesn't live in New York anymore. You don't have to show up every day on the floor. You don't have to pull tickets and get on the phone and call everybody. So if the new mayor decides that he wants to give away New York, the majority of the real money in New York they're just visiting New York. Business doesn't happen in New York anymore. It's not the same thing. In California, our Wall Street is our Gold Coast. It's real estate. So it's here. It's not here. So we have to protect it, or we're just going to lose it to the masses, which I don't see happening.
A lot of the real estate burned down, and they're not going to let it be brought back.
That's correct. They're going to turn it into high-density housing.
Yep. Well, yeah, so I want to ask you about that. I mean, what do you think anything can be done to prevent this? And if you could recommend one policy for California, as someone who actually works in this field, everyone says trust the experts. I think the experts are the people who are actually able to make a living in the field. So as someone who is an expert in the sense that how the market functions well enough to operate in it, if there was one thing that the state of California could do differently to get more houses built, what would that be?
Oh, to get more houses built?
Yeah, to get more houses built.
I was going to say, though, if I could have one policy, it would be voter ID.
Oh, amen.
Okay,
well, amen, of course. That's a given.
All right, and debris on rail. We wouldn't drive everything on trucks, and we wouldn't change zoning. Okay, number one thing you cannot do is, it's called ripping the rug. You make an investment in something, and then I come along and I change the zoning.
Yeah.
And if you're changing the zoning, then people aren't going to invest. And when you rip the rug, people won't invest. And that's, by definition, what's wrong with California. We change the rules after you've already made your decision. So we need workforce housing, and nobody wants to call it workforce housing because they don't like the name of it. So why don't we call it, employee accommodations? I don't care what we call it, but if you move a company in there, you've got to give them a place to live. We tried to build a railroad. Our high-speed rail.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was a disaster.
Okay, well, would it surprise you to know that probably 25% of the money that was used for high-speed rail went into the brick-and-mortar structure? The rest of it went to all the people fighting the rail. So you can't, it's bureaucracy cannot build. And if you have a government the size of ours, with that kind of spending, you've already taken the taxpayers. They're paying $6,000-7,000 a year just to pay salaries for government. Before you do anything else. That's why we don't have enough police. That's why we don't have enough fire. So in real estate, we cannot rip the rug. We cannot rezone things. And also, we have property tax. Property tax is for police and fire. What does it say on your property tax bill here?
It says we are stealing from you.
Okay, so property tax bill.
You gotta say no, like you did in Chicago, Tim.
It says right on it. Read it. It says what it's for.
You can't scare me.
It's probably not that terrible here, is it? The property tax.
Property tax.
Is it terrible?
Taxes in West Virginia are really, really bad. Because this was a Democrat state for a long time.
Yeah.
And it only recently turned Republican. It has some of the worst tax law in the country.
Well, I'm curious because also I know there was some proposition voted on in the 90s. Last time I was in California, I was actually surprised by. I know the property taxes there seem high, but they're actually low compared to other blue states.
Well, that's because we have this thing called Prop 13, which is this.
That's right.
1%.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like protected by this group. They're called the Howard Jarvis group. They come and protect it, and they're the gatekeepers, I should say. And they've literally fought everything off since 1979, and this mansion tax thing snuck in there.
Oh.
And the mansion tax, like if you have a lot in the Pacific Palisades worth $5 million, you are paying mansion tax on that burned out ash pile.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
That's so heinous.
And also, it affected the real estate market so badly in LA that nobody wants to trade, so the real estate just stopped trading. And that's the same as Wall Street stopping trading.
Yeah.
So the whole thing's affected. And if I were the governor of the state, I would never rezone with people that have invested. It's just not cool. And we do have a housing problem, but what we really have is a homeless problem because we don't have anywhere to put them. And we're too soft on the problem. Like you have to separate people. You have to say, "Hi, what's your come up to the table. Are you a drug addict? Are you forever homeless? Are you just having a tough time?"
Do you think that they let the wildfires happen on purpose?
Well, I definitely think that they. That's a good question, and part of me does.
So let me preface that with a couple things. First, there was the claim that they didn't send enough firefighters out in time. There's another claim that firefighters initially, when the fire was put out because it reignited, knew that there was still some embers, and they were instructed to leave and did. I don't know if that's true or not, but those are the rumors I see online.
Okay, so what happened is we've got a pretty big environmental control that was in place about 3 decades ago that says we have to protect brush thistle, which is this weird brush that grows underneath all of the forestry. We also have urban forestry. We have the Santa Monica Conservatory. We have all these groups that manage open space. None of them have any money, so they never clean it. So everywhere around is basically like a tinderbox, right? So a fire starts and it's just impossible. On top of it, we have not maintained our water, and our water structures and our water pumping and all of our reservoirs are all dilapidated. One was closed. The one that we use for the Palisades was closed. This is, again, a problem with just maintaining infrastructure. Again, property tax is for infrastructure, police and fire, and schools. That's what it's for, okay? All of it is a shit show. Can I say that on air?
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, we've already seen
You're out. It was climate change.
Beep.
The fires.
I just said beep. It was
Climate change is gone now.
So now they have. Well, we definitely heated it up there. So now we have the same problem. Where basically they haven't. They're not doing any brush clearance and they're not fixing the water problems. But more importantly, is they found this guy that lit a fire in the Lockman fire, this little fire. It was like 10 acres or something. And they put it out. They called and put it out about 10 days before the real fires, or 7 days before the real fires. They put it out. And the guy went to Florida or left. Now, the big thing is, did the city cause it? Did the state cause it? And I don't want to name names and say who did it because I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, what it looks like to me is that if they have an arsonist in the middle of this thing, whether he did or didn't, it removes liability from the state and city. And to me, that's this kid's going to get hung up. I'm sure he lit the fire. I'm sure it was terrible, but they didn't knock it down all the way or relit.
I think this guy flicked a cigarette or something, and then he searched on his phone. Can I get in trouble for an accidental fire or something?
Yeah.
The implication being he was smoking out at the brush.
And nobody's up there going, "Oh yeah, this guy caused these fires." What caused these fires is we didn't have any water. We didn't have the fire department is paper thin. There's just not enough people. They've made so many cuts. Half the equipment doesn't work. And then you have this massive, crazy brush thing.
I think society's just crumbling.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it lightly. I mean, everywhere I look, society is fractured in some ways. I think this largely has to do with no new young people. We are in it. Every year, we had a consistently large number of 16-year-olds to enter the low-skilled workforce, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, except this time. So Democrats try flooding the country with illegal immigrants, thinking this might solve the problem. Of course, it will not, because all you're doing is bringing in Honduran farmers to try and replace what should have been assistant managers at, in an office or something. It's not going to work. And so now we have all these stories. The latest one of the semi-truck with the naked Chinese guy in it who can't speak English and doesn't know what street signs are, because they're like, we need people, we'll take whatever. It doesn't work that way. And so I think it's crumbling. So there's no firefighters. Yep, no firefighters. We can't even open restaurants out here because they couldn't find staff to work in the kitchens. It's crazy.
I think there's also this really big disconnect with what's happening in the tech industry. I mean, Amazon just laid off, 14,000 people?
30.
Is it? Did they raise it? Yesterday it was 14.
The initial report was that they were going to cut 30,000 jobs.
So yesterday it was 14,000, I think. I mean, that's tremendous. Walmart is the largest.
14,000 was confirmed yesterday.
Yeah.
Up to 30,000 potential.
So all those people, with their little STEM degrees and all that stuff, what are they going to do? There's no shop in schools. We need to bring back shop in high schools. I mean, how do you not have shop? How do you not teach people a basic skill set?
Oh, we got to abolish high school.
Okay. Well, first of all, there's this whole thing going on. While I was here, by the way.
High school is the problem.
While I was in D.C., I went to this really cool conference at Heritage, and they were talking about removing telephones out of schools from K through 12 because of the decline in learning. And it's tremendous if you look at the math on it. And DeSantis in Florida has already started it. And I'm going to propose the initiative in California. I think it's a really great idea.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there. From the AP, Democratic congressional candidate Kat Abugazela indicted over ICE protests outside Chicago. And for those of you that saw the thumbnail on this episode of Timcast IRL, that's a real photo that she posted of her, and she is running for office. And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of thirsty young guys that are like, I don't care about politics. They're going to vote for it. Guys, she's not going to date you. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, here's a story. A Democratic congressional candidate in Illinois has been accused of blocking a federal agent's vehicle during September protests outside an immigration enforcement building in suburban Chicago, according to court documents unsealed Wednesday. The felony indictment filed last week by a special grand jury charges Kat Abugazela and 5 others of conspiring to impede an officer. Quote, "This is a political prosecution and a gross attempt at silencing dissent, a right protected under the First Amendment." Actually, if they're going to quote her, I'll just play the video straight from her, and this is her response.
My name is Kat Abugazale. I'm running for Congress in the 9th District of Illinois, and the Department of Justice is charging 6 people, including myself, with federal crimes for exercising our First Amendment rights near ICE's Broadview Processing Center.
I just got to pause because I don't let him just lie. No, it's because you obstructed law enforcement, which you're not allowed to do, but continue.
This is a political prosecution.
It's not.
And a gross attempt to silence dissent.
No.
A right protected under the First Amendment.
It's not.
This case is a major push by the Trump administration to criminalize protest and punish anyone who speaks out against them. That's why I'm going to fight these unjust charges, but I need your help to do it. As I and others have exercised our First Amendment rights, ICE has hit, dragged, thrown, shot with pepper balls, and tear gassed hundreds of protesters, simply because we had the gall to to say that masked men coming into our communities, abducting our neighbors, and terrorizing us cannot be our new normal. And because Chicago doesn't back down from bullies in masks who tear gas our neighborhoods, this administration has resorted to weaponizing the federal justice system to scare us into silence. But we're not going to be silent. The Trump administration wants you to be afraid of speaking out against it and its anti-democratic power grabs. And there are plenty of reasons to be afraid right now, but we have to overcome that fear. This case targets our rights to protest, speak freely, and associate with anyone who disagrees with the government. And while we have seen the unhinged and unlawful tactics this administration has used against the American public, it's important to remember they're doing this because they are scared. They are wrong. And they know they are on the wrong side of history.
Who is they, though?
Yeah.
We cannot diminish ourselves in the face of these attacks. That's why we have to unite and stand up for humanity.
Because she is anti-Israel. She hangs a keffiyeh in her room. And I'm going to tell you exactly why she's not going to win. First, I'll refute what she's saying. Let me play this video for you guys. Here's her being pushed back because she was blocking a vehicle. That's her.
Back at the Broadview.
So there are other videos of this, but I'm going to say this in reference to her. The reason why she can't win, there's two big reasons. Notice all the jump cuts in that video. And I mean this not derisively. If you want to run for office, you need to be able to talk and express yourself. You need wit. You got to go quick. You can't jump cut every 5 seconds. I got to say, as somebody who did nonprofit fundraising, making me the expert in the case, if you can't articulate your mission statement in 30 seconds, bing, bang, boom, you ain't gonna get it. You ain't gonna get it. But I gotta add, the second reason is that she is an anti-Israel candidate running in the most Jewish district in the country.
Not even just that, but there was very little in the way of actually showing performative emotion in what she was doing there. There was very little in the way of maybe it's just because we speak on camera every day, so that it's part of the gig to understand how to, when you have a point you want to articulate to people, you have to be able to look at a camera, you have to be able to make people understand what you feel about a specific topic. And if it's something as personal to her as supposedly having her First Amendment rights violated, while, of course, leaving out the very, very important part where she broke the law to do so, if she can't do that without getting through 30 seconds of time, then she's going to have a very hard time convincing voters who are not going to only see her in clips, but see her in person.
But I mean, young liberals are far left. So she has that going for her, as the next generation of Democrat is going to be, I don't want to be too one-dimensional and say communist, but communist.
Yeah. I completely disagree. The reality is at the core of their worldview is communism. It is radical far leftism. Once you accept those premises, even if you don't want to take them to their furthest, most radical conclusion, you will slowly end up approaching that position over time. And that's effectively what's happened. They've just gotten closer to that end state.
Is this an issue that is something that's come up a lot in Philadelphia with immigration law and things like that?
So the issues that I have with immigration is what Krasner's policies were in Philadelphia. Krasner's policies prior to President Trump and what's going on with ICE today was that if you were a person with bad papers and you committed a crime, you walk into a bank, you give the teller a note that says, I am robbing you, give me all your effing money. Larry Krasner, when he found out that this individual actually was here illegally, Larry Krasner downgraded a bank robbery to a possession of an instrument of crime.
What?
Now, no, this is what he's doing.
Insane.
What he was doing in Philly. We had another case where a guy who was illegal was dealing drugs, selling 80 bundles of heroin. Well, Larry Krasner became Jesus Christ. He made that case of 80 bundles of heroin. He downgraded it to possession of marijuana. He thinks he can change it, heroin to possession of marijuana, dealing heroin to possession of marijuana. These are the reasons why it's annoying to me that you gotta treat everybody fairly under the law. You break the law, whether you're a citizen or a not citizen, the law should apply to you fairly. And Larry Krasner was not doing that
Yeah. Well, look, let me back up Pat here, because I think people always think it's hyperbole, right? People think that like this, hey, we'll be soft on crime is just a Republican talking point. It's not. And look, I come from libertarian world, you know, and I found this drift in libertarian world where people would think, well, we want to fix the criminal justice system, which I'm a big fan of doing that. But when somebody tries to rob a bank, it's a little bit of a different story, right? When somebody has that amount of drugs and what their intent is, it's not always the solution to try to prove that, hey, listen, we're not going to be like the Republicans that are tough on crime. We're not going to be backing the blue. So you become the opposite. It's that slow drift you talked about where it's like all of a sudden, if you're not backing the blue, what's the opposite of that? Well, police are the enemy.
Yeah.
And it's like this dichotomy where, no, there's probably a rational place you can be. The left does not believe in rational, sane thought right now.
Well, and I love when the Democrats go, you know, we never really believed in defunding the police now that they've seen the polling data, and they clearly did believe in it, and they were clearly talking about it. They're like, well, we never believed in defunding the police. We just don't have anything good to say about the police ever, under any circumstances, and we always think they're wrong about everything they do.
Isn't that like
why is that so hard to understand?
The Mott and Bailey arguments are like, well, no, we were talking about reform, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about getting rid of the police. We're talking about reforming the police. Of course, that's after you prove how stupid the initial statement was. The most nefarious part about statements like this is that, like you're talking about with people who are in the country illegally and they're selling drugs, and they're selling drugs or they're robbing banks, but when she's talking about it, she's talking about your friends and your neighbors who are being pulled out of their homes. So one of the most nefarious aspects of illegal immigration is that you allowed them to become your friends and neighbors. And for the average everyday citizen, it is horrific to see somebody who you've grown close to in a personal way pulled from their house and removed from the country. But that's not the point. The point is that they live amongst these people, and the prior administration did a very, very good job in helping to destroy a good part of the country by letting in people who allow this to happen.
Let me pull this up. Yes, we mean literally abolish the police because reform won't happen. It's a New York Times op-ed. You know what's happening with the immigration stuff in the United States is it's the graphic novel I Am Legend. Have you guys ever read it? The movie?
Well, the original, it was actually a book before a graphic novel, or it was a novella. It was a short story.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
The movie is trash. Don't watch it. It has nothing to do with the story. Simple version. I bring it up quite a bit, but for those that don't know, for these fine gentlemen, it's about a guy who hunts vampires. And the vampires are rapidly spreading. Vampire bites somebody, become a vampire. Eventually, everyone in the country is a vampire, and he's the last human, and they arrest him for killing people, and they lock him up, and he realizes that now that every single person is a vampire, he's sentenced to death for the murder of people, and he realizes when he dies, he will be the monster of legend.
You can't
that
carry
lurked
anymore.
around while the children slept and killed them in their beds. So the point is, you being the vampire hunter only matters when your civilization exists and you're fighting the legendary monster minority. If more and more illegal immigrants come into this country, as the point Brett was making, then you are going to have whole swaths of states being non-citizens. And when you then try to enforce your laws, they will say, you are the evil dictator, come to destroy our homes and our lives. And if they take over and win this fight, these people, ICE agents, will be put in prison and be called Gestapo Nazis for breaking up families.
And there will be no land acknowledgements, by the way. If this country's taken from us, they're not going to be like, it was the noble Europeans who once lived here. Like, no, none of that.
And that is directly proven by these New York City mayoral polls that show that foreign-born New Yorkers versus American-born New Yorkers, it is like 100% the foreign-born are supporting Mamdani, and the American-born are supporting Cuomo or Sliwa. I mean, it kind of proves the point, right? Like, once you come in, how do you push back? I mean, you're obviously talking about ICE, but you're right. Like, at a certain point, what's the path back, right? What is the path? You know, once enough folks are here, it's tough to kind of reverse it.
So, I suppose it's a difficult question to ask you, Judge Dugan, because I don't think you've seen the videos of Kat. So, in a light sense, I think the answer is relatively easy. I would ask you, do you think she should have been charged? Of course, the predicate there is, have I seen the video? Do I know what she's done? But if it's true that she was blocking vehicles from ICE trying to do their job and obstructing these officers, do you think she should have been charged?
So I think anybody that interferes with official law enforcement, yes, they need to be detained and arrested after you do the investigation. And that goes from whether it's a sheriff in a small town, a police officer in a big city who's actually doing a car stop. You gotta let the law enforcement do their job. Now, you'll have your right, but you need to step away so they can do their job. If you want to protest it, don't interfere with law enforcement officers. In fact, our district attorney, you know, there's this talk about the National Guard might come to Philadelphia, and that's Mr. Krasner is out there all the time saying, it's Trump, it's Trump, it's Trump. Well,
my son.
He actually told our citizens in Philadelphia to go harass the National Guard if they come to our city. Now, my problem with that is the National Guard is actually us. It's our citizens. In Philadelphia, it's the guy from Southwest. It's our neighbor. It's a part-time job. And what they're doing is they're giving an order, and they salute the governor or the president, and they do their job. They are not our enemy. We need to go ahead and fight whatever you don't agree with through the courts, through the governor, through the president. But those National Guards, men and women, are doing their duty. They're us. I was an Army reservist. They're just doing their duty. Don't go up and harass them. And Krasner actually said, go harass these National Guard. Yet when a young man went up and tried to take some photos of Mr. Krasner with his phone, he literally pushed him away, pushed his phone away. I mean, so it just is ludicrous that he has this double standard.
Yeah. Do you think that the National Guard should be deployed into Philadelphia?
I think there should be some cooperation. I don't think we need the National Guard right now. What we need is we need somebody to cooperate with the mayor of Philadelphia, Sherelle Parker, who's a Democrat who was elected saying, let's enforce the criminal code. She has a forward-thinking police commissioner by the name of Bethel. They're working together to try to solve the issues in our city. They don't have the third partner, and that's the district attorney of Philadelphia, who refuses to hold violent criminals accountable. This is a fact. People that live in Philly know that. Philadelphia needs a district attorney to assist the mayor. Now, I will talk about the National Guard was in our city a couple of years ago. And what they did was they calmed down all the riots that we had a few years ago, the civil unrest, whatever people want to call it. But when they put those National Guardsmen on the streets in Kensington, in North Philadelphia, it calmed down. There were our neighbors that came to calm down. So it did work. We should not need them if the district attorney would do his job.
See, but here's the crazy thing. What Pat is saying is what any Democrat would have said 25 years ago, right? Like, it's not like he's saying anything here that is irrational, that is far right. This was the Democrat. I mean, these used to be pretty bipartisan races.
Aren't you a registered Democrat?
I am still a registered
What
Democrat.
happened? No, but see, that's the point. It's like not even 25 years ago, 10 years ago.
15 years ago at the
What
most.
happened to the Democratic Party where you are now, you ended up as the Republican candidate, but you're a Democrat?
You know what? There are still a lot of Democrats like me. The far left.
Democrat voters. Let me
Yes.
clarify this because it's
Okay.
something, right? Because the leaders,
Yes.
this is what I find. The leaders are, they're persuaded by the 20% of the radical activists, the radical donors. But I think you're right, because we found that in a lot of the voters we talked to, the voters, there's still quite a few of you.
Yes, there are. And again, because of the closed primary system, we get that radical candidate like Larry Krasner, backed by Soros, because he was able to dump a ton of money in. And then in those former prosecutors and those candidates who wanted to be smart on crime. Let's do these restorative justice like Veterans Court and whatnot, but be tough on violent criminals. They couldn't get the traction because they didn't have the $1 million like Krasner got from George Soros. There's that, whatever the hell he's trying to do to our country, he's destroying places
Can
like
we
Philadelphia.
dive in on that? Because I always feel like it's easy to say, that, not you, but when people talk about Soros and like what motivates him, right? Because he is giving to all of these people that are extremely soft on violent crime. We're not talking about, parking tickets.
No.
What is his motivation? Like, I mean, I have answers, and I think, he's just trying to really take over, but Is it purely evil why he's doing this? Like, what gets him going?
I don't know what his motivation are, but you can hold a city hostage by not enforcing laws on violent criminals, because the citizens who obey the law are kind of at the behest of the police, who won't. I mean, even if the police make the arrest, it doesn't matter if the prosecutor refuses to follow through and do his job, and the citizens just want to go to work and get home every day safely. A lot of people are stuck because they may have enough to pay their mortgage, but they don't have enough to leave if they want to leave. You know, that's assuming that they even have a job that would allow them to do that, say they're working remote. But you know, if you have a company in that city, if you're part of the income class that actually contributes to the to the wealth of the city, you're stuck there and you're held hostage by prosecutors who won't prosecute cases.
I can't. Oh, sorry. I don't know about Soros's life specifically. I haven't looked into him too much, but I do know about the destructive policies that he's helped promote in this country by putting soft on crime DAs in different locations and funding them. What I genuinely believe happens is when someone participates in activities in their personal lives that disfigures them spiritually, either some form of sexual perversity or like ending the life of an unborn child through abortion, harming innocents in any way, and they don't repent, they don't turn to Christ, and they have to be set in their ways, the only option for them is to actually hate things that are good and beautiful and want to see them destroyed, because it reminds them that there's something in the world besides the crime that infests their conscience every single day, the things that they've done wrong that they don't want to come to terms with. And so when they see an innocent person get hurt by a criminal, they sympathize with the criminal instead of the innocent person, because they haven't come to terms with their own misdeeds.
Or misery loves company.
That's a big, and those are the same phenomena, really.
If they can justify the criminal acts or the evil, it makes them feel better about themselves.
Exactly. It makes them feel better about their own conscience.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.
Sky smiles on the traveler. Earth gently holds his feet. Day and night are a soft song the Great Spirit sings. Bye now.